This past week, an anti-Semite stood outside of a Jewish museum and was trying to murder as many people as he could who were Jewish. People coming out of a Jewish museum would ostensibly be Jewish. And he murdered a young couple who were about to get engaged. And the names are Yoram Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram. One of the things that I thought about when I heard about this is we can't let this continue and forget about these people. They were murdered because they're Jewish. They were murdered about a lie that somehow or other Palestine has a right automatically to the land of Israel. And that's a lie. And for the sake of a lie, they murdered people, were murdered in cold blood. And it is a direct attack, not just on them, the two people who were murdered, but it's a potential attack on every Jew living in this country and wherever they may be in the world. The effect of the so-called protests, which are anti-Semitic, hateful, and should never have been allowed, but were cultivated by Arabist professors, Arab money in the universities, which has been going on for the last 60 years or so. So it's predictable. But just because it's predictable doesn't mean we have to forget. We have to keep their memory alive because we want people to realize that the results of evil and results of lies will actually cause death. And ultimately, the deaths will not just be Jews, it will be Gentile deaths. Anybody who is not an Islamist will ultimately be killed by the same people. You see, Muhammad initially tried to get people to believe in his foolishness. Muhammad was an unlearned person. He learned by listening, but he certainly didn't know how to read or write Hebrew, and he didn't know the Jewish Bible at all. The knowledge that he has is limited to what we call Midrash, because Midrash was the homiletics. These were the speeches that were given by rabbis in the synagogues in the 7th century as well as the 6th and 5th century. It continued on till the end of the 7th century and were recorded. Muhammad spent a long time in synagogues and in churches listening to what the spiritual leaders had. His knowledge of the Torah comes from these speeches that the rabbis gave, and to some extent he actually presents accurately what those rabbis said. But anything else that he says quoting the Torah is not just mistaken, but completely, totally in error. Quotes of individuals, quotes of content are always wrong whenever he quotes the Torah. The reason is because he didn't know the Torah. He quoted whatever he thought he remembered, but he didn't know the Torah at all. The Islamists will say, well, we hate Islam so much, we changed the Torah around. I mean, it's so absurd. Just look at the Vulgate, which is a Latin translation, which was 300, 400 years before Muhammad came on this earth, and look at the Septuagint, which is 1,000 years older than Muhammad, 900 years older than Muhammad, and has the same translation as the Jewish people do. It's just silly. But initially, he tried to get people to warm up to his ideas, and when they refused, he got angrier and angrier at them, and then decided he was going to war against them and kill them. And this became the jihadist, or the angry Islamic, extreme Islamic approach toward others. And essentially, they say, you've got three options. You become Muslim, or you die, or you pay the Jazeera tax. I don't know about you, I'm not interested in paying a Jazeera tax. I've been gotten used to American freedoms, and the taxes that we pay to the government based upon our earnings and so on. We're willing to pay those taxes. We're not paying a dhimmi tax. There's no second-class citizenry in the Western world, which is what they wish to impose. They lie when they say that Jews and Christians got along with the Muslims. It's not true. Muslims were brutal. The Muslims were avaricious. The Muslims stole our children, raped our women, stole our money, and were brutal. Penny minority. Just take Bethlehem. Bethlehem is under control, supposedly, of the PA, Palestinian, so-called Palestinian Authority. Prior to 67, 80% of the people living in Bethlehem were Christians. Well, that would be appropriate because that's the birthplace of Christianity. Today, almost 90% of the people living in Bethlehem are Muslim. What's the reason? The reason is that Christians find it almost impossible to live with their Muslim cousins, and they're forced to leave. That's the reality. Reality is that Islam is not a religion of peace. It's a religion of hatred, of war. It is intolerant. You could say, well, Christianity was intolerant or is intolerant of those who don't believe in JC, as is the Jewish religion. They're intolerant of people who don't believe in Judaism. There's a big difference. There is no obligation for me as a Jew to impose my belief on the entire world. The only thing that there is an obligation for me to impose is the basic tenets of morality included in the 7 Noahide laws. That's for a different discussion. But there is no obligation that I have, or any Jew has, to force my religion on anybody else. I don't have to take over the world. Islam is obsessed that they must take over the world, take over other people's lands, and must force those people to change their faith. You got to ask yourself, why would I change my faith in something that is stupid, something that's a lie, something that can easily be proven doesn't have any basis in history, any basis in logic, or any basis in scripture? Why would I accept that? Why would any thinking person accept that? The place of women in Islam is worse than in any religious society. Women are sexual objects. A man can have as many wives as he wants, as many sexual slaves as he wants. This is not what is found in the Torah. It's not the practice of practicing Jews, religious Jews, or practicing Christians over the world. Essentially, Islam is a petrified ideology that remains in the 7th century. There were some times when Islamic scholars and philosophers, but at one point they became petrified. They've never gone beyond that. There hasn't been a single great idea, great study, great advancement that has come out of the Islamic world at all. You got to ask yourself, if it is the ultimate truth, how come you haven't produced any Nobel Prize winners? How come you haven't created anything new? The answer is because you're not looking to create anything new. You're trying to suppress people, trying to stop people from thinking. At any rate, in memory of Sarah and yoram, we want to start a series of basic Jewish teachings on the Torah. Why believe in the Torah? Why accept the Torah? Why the Torah is eternal? Now, some people may ask me, they weren't religious. In fact, according to Jewish law, yoram wasn't even Jewish. My response is as follows. yoram was going to live in Israel. And if he wanted to live in Israel and get married in Israel, he would have to undergo a halakhic conversion. And although many people convert in other places and so on, come to Israel, and the Misrad their political forces accept this, ultimately, if he wanted to get married in a Jewish way, he would have converted. And had he known the truth, he would have converted. And that Sarah Lynn Milgram had an opportunity to examine the truth. I believe she would have become Orthodox, that she would have accepted the Torah. She just never had the opportunity. So this is a series, an institution of basic Judaism in their memory, in yoram and Sarah's memory. I want to also share with you something interesting. Yoram's first letters of his name are Yud Resh, and Sarah's name is Sarah Lynn, or Shin Lamed, and her last name is Milgram. Together that spells Yerushalayim, or Yerushalem. Interesting, they were going to go to Jerusalem to get engaged, and their names reflect the eternal capital city of the Jewish people. So, we're going to start next video a basic Jewish series in memory of yoram and Sarah.